So Kyle, we've been receiving almost daily inquiries from defense industrial base companies who've received these form type letters from the DoD or their prime contractor. They talk about November 30th deadline, SPRS submission, self-assessment score, NIST 800-171, and CMMC compliance. And they're worried and even nervous because they haven't submitted, and they really haven't even focused on this. And we have a couple of examples that we'll show in this video in a little bit. But really, what's this all about? What's going on here?
Yes, this pertains to defense contractors that handle Control Unclassified Information, or CUI. The November 30th, 2020 date is the effective date of the interim DFARS rules, which was the change to the existing DFARS 7012 rule.
Okay, and for me as a defense industrial base contractor, is there something that I was actually required to do and to respond to by November 30th? And if so, is there a grace period for me?
From DoD point of view, only DFARS rule change went into effect on November 30th, 2020. From Prime Contract point of view, though, they have set November 30th as a date for their subs to comply. So for subs, they do need to meet their Prime's compliance requirements as soon as possible. So after November 30th, 2020, DoD will start including the new DFARS rules into the new RFPs and the contracts.
Okay, good. Well, let's unpack some of the terminology and talk about what's involved here and what it means. So terms like NIST 800-171, SPRS, SSP, and what's a POA&M, for example?
So NIST 800-171 is a cybersecurity standard for protecting Control Unclassified Information, or CUI, in the defense contractor systems. SPRS means Supplier Performance Risk System that is managed by DoD. It is a system to track and store assessment results submissions by the contractors. DoD uses it as an evaluation criteria for contract awards. SSP means System Security Plan, which documents the contractor's CUI scope and boundary, controls and practices, roles and responsibilities, and it is a security plan that the defense contractors develop and follow. POA&M is a plan of action and milestone document, shows the compliance gaps, plan for remediation, and the estimate date for remediation completion.
Okay, good. The self-assessment score, what does that mean? And what's a perfect score? And is it possible for me as a defense industrial base company, could I go through this exercise and actually get a negative score?
Yes. Yeah. So self-assessment summary level score shows your level of compliance to NIST 800-171. The perfect score is 110. Yes, it is possible to get a negative score. Some of our clients do start with a negative score because they don't have many practices in place yet. Each of the 110 practices have an associated score. You start with a perfect score of 110. If the practice is not being implemented, it will be deducted. Your net score is the assessment score you submit to SPRS.
Okay, and what if I haven't done an SSP, or I've just sort of estimated it internally because I really didn't have the resources or put the time and effort into it?
Yeah, you want to start the compliance effort today, if not any sooner, right? Because it takes time and effort. We have developed a proprietary CUI data lifecycle methodology. This is to define and minimize your CUI footprint. This also is a more efficient and cost-effective process. We evaluate how CUI data enter your organization and how you create CUI, how you store it and protect it, how you use it and access it, how you share your CUI, how do you archive or backup your CUI, And finally, how do you dispose your CUI data securely? This allows us to quickly complete the documentation required for SPRS submission. We can do this as quickly as 2 weeks for the smaller companies.
Well, great. This sounds really good. What happens if there's a negative score? Does that mean I'm not compliant? Or is it possible for me to be compliant even with a negative score?
Yes, it is pretty common to start with a negative score if you are missing some of the critical controls, but you will be in compliance because you meet the submission requirements. You do want to plan to tackle the POA&M items as soon as possible to get your score up. You can prioritize your plan of action based on the criticality of your practices.
Okay, well, good. Will my prime contractor be able to see my score?
No, they will not. Primes will not be able to see your score in the SPRS.
Good. How much time will I have to reach a perfect score of 110?
There's not really a set time, but remember, if you are a prime, your assessment score in the SPRS will be used as an evaluation criteria for new contracts or recompetes. You want to get the perfect score of 110 as soon as possible. Also, as a reminder, you should not inflate the score because DoD reserves the right to audit you.
Oh, good point. Okay. And now to wind this up, I guess, how does CMMC relate to all of this?
CMMC is a progressive follow-up cybersecurity requirements for DoD contracts and will be rolling out in the next 5 years between now to the end of 2025. You will start seeing some new contracts with CMMC requirements starting in 2021. CMMC has 20 additional practices on top of NIST 800-171, so it should be a smaller incremental effort to get to CMMC compliance if you have already achieved the 800-171 compliance or perfect score of 110.
So here are two examples of the letters that Kyle and I were talking about a little earlier in this video. The first is a letter that was sent out by the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, and this one was sent out to Defense Industrial Base Prime Contractors. I've highlighted it here to make it a little easier to follow along, and I'll try to use acronyms instead of the more verbose full phrases, which can just be a little bit cumbersome. So here we go in the first paragraph. DFARS supplement ending in 7012 requires contractors and subcontractors to implement the security requirements of NIST 800-171. And it's all about protecting controlled, unclassified information in non-federal systems and organizations when covered defense information resides on or transits through the contractor's or subcontractor's internal information system. And in the second paragraph, it speaks to the requirement that the self-assessment results be submitted and documented into the SPRS, the DoD's Supplier Performance Risk System. The second letter is typical of what prime contractors have been sending out to their subs. And I've scrubbed the actual prime contractor's name here for the sake of anonymity, but it goes like this. Speaks to the new DFARS requirements effective November 30th of 2020, 3 new regulations. So DFARS ending in 7019 is the notice requirement. 7020 is the actual NIST 800-171 self-assessment requirement. And 7021 is the progressive evolutionary standard from NIST 800-171 to CMMC. Continuing along, we see that all contractors must have and submit their current assessment score in the DoD's Supplier Performance Risk System, the SPRS, and that prior to awarding contracts and subcontracts that involve CUI, the contracting organizations must confirm that a current assessment score has been submitted into the SPRS system. And down here in the third section, this is what prime contractors are typically asking of their subcontractors. So it said, please send to the prime contractor a formal letter addressing each of the following for your organization as soon as possible and prior to November 30th of 2020. So number one, confirmation that your NIST 800-171 assessment score has been submitted into the SPRS. Now, it's important to note here that there is no ask, there is no requirement that you provide them with your actual self-assessment score. The second item is your POA&M. So that's your plan of action and milestone. The ECD, which is your estimated completion date for any unimplemented NIST 800-171 requirements. Third bullet item is the status and the estimated completion date for the additional 20 CMMC practices for Level 3. And closely related is the fourth bullet point, your status and your estimated completion date for Level 2 and 3 maturity processes. KLC Consulting are cybersecurity consultants who specialize in NIST 800-171 and CMMC requirements. We're here to help. And look, we recognize November 30th has come and gone, and that a lot of folks are a little bit anxious about this. They feel like they're missed the deadline and they're behind, and they're wondering how it might affect their status with the DoD or their status in the eyes of their prime contractors. Right now, we're offering a special on our website that for $5,900, we will help prepare and get you to the point where you can submit the information that you need to submit into the SPRS. We'll put together your system security plan, your POA&M, and your self-assessment score worksheet so that you'll be able to submit this into the SPRS submission. The important thing to note is even if you're coming up with a negative score, that's quite common. By getting this information into the SPRS, you're now compliant. And if you need help with remediation, we're certainly available to help with that as well. So I'll post the link to that page in our website at the end of this video, and put our contact information in it as well. And if we can help, please let us know.
Well, good. I think that's been very helpful. We're going to be doing a follow-up video to talk about the CMMC preparation and certification process with one of our provisional CMMC assessors. So very good. Good job, Kyle. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.